Hello, and welcome to Crime Goats. I'm Adelia, or Addie.
And I'm Chloe.
And today, I will be talking about the kidnapping of Elizabeth Smart.
Who's she?
You're about to find out. I would like to say, if you are triggered by sexual assault or crimes against children, that maybe this isn't the case for you. But don't worry, we'll have a new one next week.
Yeah.
May or may not include the same things.
Probably. If it's gonna be my turn.
Yeah, and it
Talk
will
about
be.
cults.
And since this is our first episode, I would like to say that we go back and forth. One week it'll be my week, another week it'll be Chloe's week. And so this is my week right now. And next week, Chloe is going to be talking about, I don't know, what are you talking about? You know yet?
One of my cults that I'm very interested in.
Okay. Well,
We're just gonna delve right in?
do you want to? Do you have anything you want to talk about first?
Not really.
I don't either.
Other than if you have League of Legends, please delete it immediately. That's my PSA for today.
Okay, let's get into it. So, Elizabeth Smart, let's just have some background on her.
Hi.
She was born November 3rd, 1987. She is the second child of Ed and Lois Smart, and she is one out of 6 children.
What the fuck?
That's still a lot. There's 4 boys and 2 girls, including her.
Damn. Were they all like live birth? Like non C-section?
I don't know
Because
about
that takes a toll.
I'm not quite. Lois, I don't think she disclosed how she gave birth.
Gave birth.
I know they're all their children.
Oh.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're all just Ed and Lois's children, and
Right.
hopefully that's not really loud. But yeah, they had a really big family. They had as far as I know, they had a really big house too, which is very important in the rest of the case. They did have a very big house.
Mm-hmm.
They lived a very nice life. They had a nice family dynamic. A very nice neighborhood. It was known as one of the nice suburban
Areas.
just really good neighborhood. It was in Salt Lake City.
Utah?
Mm-hmm,
Mormons?
Utah. You're getting ahead.
Does this case involve Mormons?
You're getting ahead. But Elizabeth Smart was very normal. Just a great, smart girl. She was into normal. She liked playing with friends. She liked playing with dolls, and she was actually very talented in playing the harp.
Interesting.
She was very good at playing the harp, and she dedicated hours to playing the harp.
Damn.
Her parents would say you would walk through the house and just hear Elizabeth playing the harp.
That's a beautiful sound to walk into
Yeah.
your house to listen to, though.
And at this time, she was in middle school. She was about 13 or 14, and she was really excited, just like I think most people are, to go into high school. Just because she really wanted more freedom.
I wasn't excited. I was terrified.
Well, she was very excited.
You were terrified.
I think everyone's a little terrified, but also really excited.
I was
It's just a new
scared.
place.
I was scared.
And she was really excited to, have more freedom and date boys. She was really excited to date boys and drive. She really wanted to drive.
Shouldn't be excited to date boys.
And she had this whole vision for her future. She wanted to kind of meet the man of her dreams, get married, have children, kind of like the family she had. She wanted that.
She wanted to be a housewife.
I don't know if exactly she wanted to be a housewife, but she wanted to have a family like her parents had.
That makes sense.
And like you said, her and her family belonged to the Mormon Church, which influenced a lot of how they lived.
Oh, yeah, that's why they're a big family.
Yeah. And they had a very strict lifestyle, One of their biggest things was no sex before marriage.
Yeah.
And these were not only important to just the family, they were important to Elizabeth. Elizabeth was very into this faith. She loved being part of the Mormon Church, and she was very close to her family. She loved her family. She was very close to them.
Mm-hmm.
And let's get to 2002. So in 2002, they had the Olympics in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
There was tons of tourists. The alcohol laws were also relaxed at this time. And in the family right now, they were having kind of an issue. Their grandfather was diagnosed with a brain tumor, Elizabeth's grandfather.
Oh.
And passed away 2 months after they found out.
Oh, shit.
And so this was obviously very hard on the family.
Yeah.
And they were all going through it, just like anyone. I mean, like I said before, she was very close to all of her family. That included her grandfather.
Dang.
So the day after the funeral, the whole family was like, anyone that's gone through a funeral, you know how exhausting it can be to go through a funeral.
Yes.
So they were all very tired and really sad, of course.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth had a middle school awards assembly that night.
Oh,
so
fuck.
And she was playing a harp at the ceremony. So it was like a big deal for her. She didn't want to miss it, even though she was going through this. It was like she really wanted to be there.
Bro.
To play the harp, and like her family like was like excited for her. Like she was excited, they were excited for her. She really wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
They went. It was pretty normal. Their mother cooked dinner. She burnt it, which is fine.
Why add that detail?
Because she cracked the window in their kitchen. She cracked the window in their kitchen, and they went to the ceremony. The ceremony went well. They came back to the house. Everything was fine. They felt fine considering what they had been through.
Mm-hmm.
And so Elizabeth and her sister Mary Catherine went up to their shared room, and they started getting ready for bed. They read Ella Enchanted. It was like their favorite book, which...
Bomb movie.
Yes, really good movie. Ella Enchanted, Elizabeth really liked because I think, as far as I know, wasn't Ella, she was like 14 or 15?
Something like that.
Something like that. I don't know
close
exactly.
to age.
But they were both, she was close to age. She really loved that book, so they read it like every night or something.
And this was like in 2002, you said?
Mm-hmm, this was 2002.
Dang.
And they went to sleep, but Elizabeth woke up at 2 a.m. to a man holding a knife to her neck.
Oh my god.
And he said to her, "I have a knife to your neck. Don't make any sound and come with me." And she, at first, thought it was a dream. Like, because you wake up, you're like, kind of, especially
out
at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, you're out of it.
You're like out of it. You don't know what's going on, but then like the adrenaline kicked in, and she was wide awake. Like, she was like, okay, I don't want my little sister to be hurt.
Yeah.
Her little sister's like sleeping right over there. Her sister was like 8, I think, sleeping right in the bed next to her. She was like, okay, she did it really like adult for her age. She's like, I don't want my sister to hurt. I'm going to do what this guy says.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight back. And she hoped that Mary Catherine would not even wake up. Mary Catherine was awake this whole time.
Whoa.
She was awake for this. And they both knew at this time, like, they just needed to, like, avoid anything else happening.
Yeah.
And as, like, an 8-year-old waking up to this, you would be, like, paralyzed with fear. You
would.
wouldn't be like, oh, I need to jump into action and try to get this
You'd be like, what is
man
going
out of the room.
on? Yeah.
So he led Elizabeth down the hallway, out of the room, and Mary Catherine could hear, like, them going down the hallway, because she, you know, their floors were like creaking, so she could hear them going down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually got out of bed at this time to, like, she wanted to go get her parents, but she like got out of bed and she froze with fear.
Yeah.
Like, because she was like, if he hears me, he's gonna come back for me and I'm gonna be dead.
Yeah.
So she got back in bed and she waited till she knew he was out of the house, and then she went to go get her parents. Elizabeth was, when she first got up, she was taken to her closet to get a pair of shoes, and then taken straight out of the house, out of the kitchen door. And they walked with the knife against her back, and he was pushing her from behind, like, threatening her the whole way. And she was just listening to him, doing what he said, and she was hoping someone would save her.
Oh my god.
So let's talk about the man who was doing this. His name was Brian David Mitchell. He was born in 1953 in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
His parents were Cheryl. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Cheryl?
It's a man's name.
Cheryl?
Shirl. I've heard it pronounced.
Cheryl?
I've heard it pronounced Cheryl. And Irene Mitchell. He was also raised Mormon with 5 siblings.
Damn.
So very similar to her.
Mm-hmm.
He had a similar childhood. It was his plan to, like, kidnap someone who was Mormon so that they understood him and he understood them. Like, he understood how to manipulate them was his main thing. Because he would know, like, their fears. He would know, like, what kind of lifestyle they lived. That was his whole thing, is he wanted to kidnap someone who was also Mormon so he could manipulate them.
Is there a deeper reason for that? Like,
you'll kind of see later on. His dad, Cheryl, was a social worker, which is ironic because he was an awful dad. He was just an awful dad. He taught Brian about sex, and, like, I don't mean just, like, birds and bees. Like, he taught him deep things about sex at 8 years old. And he also forced him to, like, look at pictures about sex in medical journals at 8 years old. He would also drop him off far away from his house and make him get back to their home on his own, no matter how long it took.
Bro, that sounds like that one episode of The Office.
Yeah,
when
basically.
Dwight fucking left Michael.
Yeah.
And the...
So that's
To a child?
Yeah. And Brian, which doesn't come as a surprise, started acting very odd towards, like, very disrespectful, very disgusting towards girls at a very young age.
And not like the typical, oh, like, girls have cooties, but like the...
But, like, at 16, he exposed himself to an 8-year-old and asked the 8-year-old to touch him.
Oh.
And he got juvie time. He went to jail. He got out when he was 19.
So he's a pedo.
Yes, very much. He got out at 19, and almost immediately after he got out, he married a 17-year-old.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Which I don't know the age restrictions in Utah, but still, it's a 19-year-old marrying a 17-year-old. There's going to be, your brains aren't exactly the same.
Yeah.
Her name was Karen Miner, and she already, and they yeah, kind of ironic. They had 2 children together. They did not care about their kids at all.
God damn.
They were not good parents. They drank around their kids, they smoked around their kids, they partied, and just never really took care of their kids. Basically, to them, they didn't have kids. Like,
were they not serious about being Mormon like Elizabeth?
At this time, I don't think Brian considered himself Mormon anymore. He never really talked about it at this time, and later on he'll get back into it, but right now I don't think he, especially with him drinking and smoking and partying and stuff like this, I don't think he
took it seriously.
Him and Karen divorced.
Understandable.
Him and Karen divorced. I don't exactly know why. I think they just didn't get along, and they decided
they married each other when they were
very
still
young.
Yeah.
They had a custody battle for the 2 kids, which is, I guess I don't know if they were both battling to not have the kids since they didn't care about the kids. But what happens next is very odd considering that they don't care about the kids. On the day of the custody hearing, Brian actually kidnapped his kids. Like, on the day of the custody hearing, he kidnapped his 2 kids, took them to New Hampshire for 2 years. He had those kids kidnapped for 2 years.
What the fuck? And no one,
did
know. Shit?
I don't know what happened, but one thing that might have kind of influenced that nobody ever finding them, they lived in a commune. They went and started living in a commune.
Commune?
A commune.
Why do all bad dads go to New Hampshire?
But it was a commune.
Speaking from personal experience.
I think it was called Hare Krishna, something like that. I don't think he was very into the commune. I think he mostly went there because it provided shelter and food for him and his kids. I don't think it was him like, okay, this is my new life, like, on this commune. I think it was more about him, like... Okay,
taking advantage?
Yeah, taking advantage of a, commune. Like, they feed you, they shelter you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he had any type of job at this time. If he did, it wasn't a serious job because he lived in a commune. And I doubt he had a job when he was with Karen, considering that they partied all the time.
Yeah.
He eventually decided to go back to Salt Lake City to his brother, and his brother got him back into the Mormon faith. And his brother also got him clean, because I think he was very into drinking. I don't know if he was into drugs, but I know he was very into drinking. And Brian acted like this was a huge change for him. Like, he had completely turned a new leaf. He completely acted like he was just a new person now. And he found a second wife. I guess he's completely divorced Karen now, and I guess the custody is all good. I think he does have the kids now. I don't know if, like, their custody battle was just over now. I don't know what happened with Karen.
He took the kids for 2 years.
Yeah, I guess maybe Karen gave up. I don't know.
I would have.
So, Debbie already had 3 kids. So now they're up to 5 kids.
Who's Debbie?
His new wife. Did I not say
her
name is Debbie? Okay, yeah, he has a new wife named Debbie. She has 3 kids, so now they have a total of 5 kids. This marriage did not last at all. It was not a very good marriage. When Debbie left him, she said that he was very inappropriate with her kids, especially the 3-year-old son.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, he got introduced to that at a young
Yeah.
age. I'm not saying that's like an excuse.
Yeah,
but
it's like kind of expected. You do
Yeah.
this with your son, you expect him to follow in this path.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously not always the case, but this is very, like, common.
Yeah.
He was also apparently very abusive towards her, just not a great marriage at all. He tried to save this marriage in a very odd way. I don't know why he was trying to save it. I doubt Debbie was like, yeah, let's save this marriage, but he was like, here's how I'm going to save this marriage. I'm going to send my kids to foster care.
What the fuck?
To him, I think it was kind of like, hey, here's my baggage. Let me just, throw it out the window.
This is too familiar.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to send my kids to foster care, and maybe we can just work this out.
Yeah, let me get rid of my kids so I
Yeah.
can be with you.
Debbie was like, nah, nope, I'm actually very good, Brian. I don't want you in my life. And they divorced in 1984.
Okay.
She did not want him. And one of Debbie's daughters actually came out and said that Brian assaulted her for years when they were together.
Oh my god.
After he moved on, he moved on very quickly after this divorce. It's a very reoccurring thing for him to just find new women. And he got with a woman named Wanda Barzee. Wanda was 40 and had 6 kids. I don't think Brian, not Ryan. I think his kids are gone now. I think he did put them in foster care.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. Wanda's kids would describe Wanda as evil. Like, straight up
Imagine
evil.
calling your mom evil.
They had a good reason. She was very abusive towards them and not a mother at all. Like, she just did not take care of them. She was very awful towards them.
Bro.
Wanda and Brian were both very into the LDS church.
Latter-day Saints?
They were both very religious and into this church, and
And yet they abuse their kids.
yup. Brian at this time described himself as a prophet.
A prophet?
Yes. And he would say that he talks to God, and he thinks that he is the chosen one.
Why would God want some deadbeat dad from fucking
But
Utah?
I don't think he would, but Brian definitely thinks he is. He went through a big spiritual awakening, and his new name, that I will not be calling him by, his name is Brian, but he has a new name called Emmanuel. And he came up with a new name for Wanda, which I will also not be calling Wanda. Her name is Wanda, but
you won't be calling her this
Hepzibah.
name. Hepzibah?
Hepzibah.
Are these like biblical names?
I think so. I know Emmanuel is. I bet they're both biblical.
Yeah.
And he told the Mormon church, he came into his church and he was like, hey, my name's Emmanuel, this is Hepzibah, I'm the prophet. And they're like, no, you're not.
What the fuck is wrong with you, bro?
They're like, you're really not, though. Can you leave? You're not in our church anymore. And he took Wanda with him and they left the church. He completely lost it after this.
Bruh.
He lost his mind after this. He was not happy about this at all.
He just got kicked out of
yeah.
the same church that he claimed to be a prophet from.
He was very angry after this. He's still prophet. Like, this did not change his mind about this. He is still Emmanuel. He is still a prophet.
God.
I don't think he is just descended from God himself.
The chosen one.
He started wearing white robes, and he grew his beard out to look like Jesus Christ.
Oh my, that's a common thing among people who think like that.
Yeah.
And cult leaders too, because
Yes.
a lot of cult leaders are like that too.
I think honestly that Brian really wanted to be a cult leader.
Probably.
Especially with how he treated Wanda. I think he really wanted to.
He did live in a commune.
He did live in a commune, and I think this really... Honestly, they didn't talk very much about the commune, but I think that really probably influenced a lot of how he is acting
The sense of community.
Yeah.
Air quotes.
But he would, not just him and Wanda would spend their days on the streets panhandling. He would be on the streets, he would scream Bible verses at people.
That's not a way to get money, my guy.
And he would also kind of just go around and tell people that he was a prophet, tell them that he was Emmanuel, tell them... I think he actually wrote a 27-page manuscript, and he would hand it out to people.
Oh my God.
And try to force people to read his manuscript.
Could you find it online?
I think he handed it out to a lot of people. At this time, I don't know, though, because I bet a bunch of people just threw it away.
I bet. They were like, oh, poor guy.
But he was off the deep end at this point, and to the point where his own mother got a restraining order against him.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Like, she did not want him around. I don't know exactly what he did to get this restraining order. I have to assume that it's all this.
Yeah.
Where
His mom was like, I don't know, man.
Totally good. Wanda was the only one who entertained his fantasy. Like, no one else was really like, yeah, you're the prophet. But she was like, you're so the prophet. Like,
she was in on it.
She was totally, like, just playing into what he was doing. But let's get back to the kidnapping.
Okay.
So we're done talking about his backstory.
So, he kidnapped Elizabeth.
Yes.
Knife at her back.
Yeah, she is freaking out right now.
Oh, I would be
Heart
too.
pounding, adrenaline running through her.
I would have pissed my pants.
Yeah, for real. He is continuing to force her up a hill beside her house with the knife at her back. As they're going up the hill, they see a police car.
Oh,
They see headlights coming down the street.
What?
They see that it's a police car. She's relieved. She's like,
Oh, thank God.
She's like, yeah, okay, great. This has not gone on for too long. I'm saved. He pushes her down behind a bush, has the knife to her back, and he's like, is threatening her. He's like muttering to himself. She could tell that he was like freaked out. He was like sweating, like talking to himself. And he like looked up. He said, if this work is true, God, let this car pass. It passes. There's her chance.
What the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he thought that was him doing it. But it was definitely just the police car not seeing them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 2 a.m. It's pitch black. It's midnight. It passes.
Damn.
They kept going. They kept hiking up the mountain. Like, this is a mountain that they're
Why?
hiking up.
Does he push her off the mountain?
He's threatening her up the whole way. Like, I'm going to kill your family if you do not come up with me. I'm going to murder you. I'm going to go back and kill your whole family if you try to get us caught.
Bruh.
And as she's going up, Elizabeth is like thinking of all the news stories that she's seen of all the kidnapped kids, just terrified. She's not very hopeful about this because you hear about those news stories where kids get like their remains found weeks later, days later. And she knew her chance was really slim at this point because the police car passed.
He took her to a secondary location.
Yeah, she thought that he was going to rape, kill, and dump her. And so she's so scared right now that she said, like, can you just rape me, kill me so that my parents knows what happened to me? Like, that's what she asked him. And he was like, and this is what he said to him. He looked her in the eye, smiled at her, and said, I'm not going to kill you yet. That's what he said to her.
Yet?
Yeah.
That's so scary.
So, and, like, she said that she, like, looked at him and she saw the crazy in his face. And so they turned off the main trail and off to this side, rough, like, obviously people don't walk down this trail, like, very, like, secluded trail. And she was just thinking, like, how can I scare this guy into, like, bringing me back? Like, how can I scare him into just leaving me? She could tell that he was kind of easily manipulated. Like, she could tell that he was, like, crazy.
Bro.
And so she said to him, there's a very little chance you're going to get away with this. My parents are going to find me, and you're going to go to prison. She was saying stuff like, just let me go. My parents won't press charges. Just leave me here. And he's, like, not buying it. He's like, and he told her this, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm not going to get caught.
I would have looked him dead in the eyes and been like, kill me.
Yeah.
Kill me.
And so this part, him saying that is when it was when Elizabeth realizes that she knows him. Like,
No!
She knows this guy.
No!
Yeah. From what he said. So
How does she know him?
So here's what's going on. So 7 months ago, Elizabeth Smart, her mom, and her siblings were downtown shopping. Salt Lake City, I'm sure they have like a bunch of places to shop.
Yeah.
And this guy on the side of the street was begging for money. And so, I guess you can see where it's going here.
Is it who I think it is?
And her mom, being the nice, generous woman she is, gave him $5. And Elizabeth remembered him being very friendly, very calm.
Bro, do you
very, like, nice, like, just a nice guy, like, very calm, very, like, you can talk to him very easily. And he told her mom that his name was Emmanuel. And her mom, like, chatted with him, being very polite.
Yeah.
And They talked for a while, and she gave him her husband's number, her phone number.
Dog.
And because they live in a really huge, like, if you've seen this house, it's huge. They have a lot of contractors working on their house. So she gave him her husband's number, like, hey, if you ever need a job, come work on our house. Like, we'll let you work on our house for some money, you know, just being kind. And
No!
the husband hired him to come work at the house, to come, like, cut down trees.
No!
Yeah. Okay. So that's how she knew him. He
That's
worked on the
fucked
house.
up.
I think he only worked there, like, one day. Like,
That's still fucked up.
day. Okay, so Mary was back at the house right after Elizabeth got
Mary Catherine, yes.
Yeah, Mary Catherine.
Little baby girl.
She was back at the house. She was hiding in bed, you know, scared. Yeah. She was scared. Like, I would be, like, peeing my pants. Like, I would be peeing in my bed. I wouldn't be able to get up, but she was brave, and she went and got up and went to tell her parents. She went in there, and she, like, woke up her dad, and she was like, someone took Elizabeth. Like, she's gone. Someone took her. The parents woke up freaking out.
Yeah,
like,
I would too.
What would you do in that situation?
Parents already wake up freaked out.
Yeah, like, they wake up like, what? What's going on?
What's going on?
But she went and told her dad, woke her up. He woke up his wife. And
that's their worst nightmare, too.
They went searching around the house. They went, like, searching in every room. And Mary Catherine this whole time was, like, saying, she's not here. She's not in the house. He took her. He left with her. She is not here. You're not going to find her. They searched the whole house. At this point, the entire house was awake. Everyone was awake.
Yeah.
The mom went into the kitchen.
All 5 of them.
She went to the kitchen and she looked over and she saw the open window that she cracked when she burnt the food. And she saw that the screen was slashed. And she fell to her knees and started screaming. Like, screaming. Elizabeth Smart's brother actually said that that's the worst sound he's ever heard, is the way that she was screaming in that moment. They knew she was gone by now. Like, they knew that she was, like,
that's
gone.
heart-wrenching, bro.
Like, they knew that someone had come into the house and kidnapped her. Around 4 a.m., they called the police and their family. They had a bunch of family in Utah. They called their whole family. Their whole family, that, like a big, like, they were all at their house by 6 a.m. The police never sealed off the house as a crime scene.
Why?
They never sealed off the house as a crime scene, and they let the family stay in the house and people coming into the house. So this
like random
scene,
ass people,
like their family, like their extended family. This crime scene was contaminated beyond
belief.
Like, it was just so many people in the house. They were walking through the house. This was late at night, so it was a lot of, like, newbie police officers. Because it's the graveyard shift, you assume, like, oh, I can just, like, it's like newbies, like, new, inexperienced police officers. And so they never taped anything off, never took a log of who was coming and who was going. The experienced police officers eventually started coming in, and they were just like, okay, what?
Yeah.
Y'all didn't do your job. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. Like, a girl just got kidnapped. She's missing, and you didn't tape off her room at least. You didn't tape off the window that was slashed.
Yeah, bro.
There could have been fingerprints, and you didn't tape it off, and now it's contaminated. Like, you've had people walking through, like, touching stuff.
Dumbasses.
So at this time, since it was so contaminated, since people were walking through the house, it's now an assumption that a family member has done this. That it was, like, a family member, and now they're trying to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought the whole family down for questioning to the police station.
That's a lot of people.
They had cadaver dogs come through the house. Obviously, there was nothing found since it wasn't taped off.
Yeah.
Mary Catherine was by herself with the police officers. And she tries to tell them what she can remember, and she actually remembers quite a lot. She did pretty good. She said that he was a white man, from 30 to 40, same height as her brother, Charles, who was 5'8". And she said that she recognized his voice. She told them, like, I've heard this voice before. It's calm, it's familiar. She didn't know exactly who it was, but she knew that she knew him.
That just proves even more that they might think it's a family member.
And she said that she heard him saying, but she did say this. She said she heard him saying that he was kidnapping her for ransom. So, at this point, the family is really frustrated, obviously, because, you know, they think that They're getting questions, and they
Mhm.
also think that things aren't moving fast enough. And
They think their daughter's dead, bro.
yeah, and they think that the police officers are really wasting time here. And they wanted to go out and search. They wanted to go out and search for their daughter.
Yeah.
Cops made them wait 3 hours to put photos out and alerts for Elizabeth. So for 3
Why?
hours after this has all happened, they made them wait to put out photos and search, like, go search for her.
Shit can happen in 3 hours.
Yeah. After they cleared the family was, like, totally frustrated with the police. They were just like, okay, you're not doing what I want you to do. And they went to the media.
Oh.
This was a huge story. Like, her photos were all over the news, and it was constantly covered locally. Like, it was, like, on all the time. I mean, it's a white girl from Utah. A little Mormon white girl from Utah. Everyone's freaking out, and everyone knew about this case. So let's go back to Elizabeth.
What's she up to?
I'm scared. Okay, so now her and Brian are almost at the top of the mountain. They've been trekking up this mountain this entire time.
And this is like roughly 2, 3 a.m.
I mean, by now, it's probably like 6 a.m. or 7. So she's been going up this mountain for hours. Elizabeth is wearing bright red PJs. I think there was like floral red, bright red PJs.
Yeah.
He actually compared her to a bright red flame. That's what Brian called her. And this freaked him out. Because he was like, someone's going to see us. We're going to get caught. Someone's going to see your pajamas. Like, we got to go. We got to go. So they made it up to the camp. He had it all set up for this.
What?
He was definitely, like, planning this. He had, like, tarps down, a tent. Like, he was ready.
To kill her?
Yeah. Well, he was ready for her to be there.
Okay.
And he was like, okay, let me go tell my wife that you're here.
What the
Yeah,
fuck?
he was like, hey, my wife is waiting for us up here.
What the fuck? Ugh, those are the worst type of women.
Yeah. So Elizabeth now thinks that she's kind of safer that there's a wife there. Cause she was like, because in her mind she was like, maybe these are like this is like a crazy couple that couldn't have a kid, so they're trying to compensate.
No.
No. So, but she was calming down now. She saw the tarps on the ground, the tent, and here comes like Wanda from behind a tree. She was like standing behind a tree, and she's in like long linen robes and like a headdress. Like a face covering headdress. So she's kind of dressed like Brian now. God.
Fuck.
Yeah. And Wanda comes over to Elizabeth and hugs her.
Ew.
But Elizabeth said this didn't feel like this was obviously not like a nice hug. It was like a very tight, like controlling hug. Like, I gotcha. And Wanda took her into the tent and started washing Elizabeth's feet. And Wanda tells...
This sounds like a sacrifice.
Yeah, Wanda tells her to undress. She's like, you need to undress and put on this robe. And I assume it's like a robe that they're wearing. Like
Yeah, like a white robe.
And Elizabeth at first is like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, queen.
And Wanda tells her, if you don't do it, then Brian's going to come in here and do it for you. He's like going to come in here and undress you. So Elizabeth's like, obviously like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I don't want him to come in here and do it. And she sits down on this bucket in the tent. Wanda leaves.
Oh, at least she left.
No, I think she left after she dresses. Now Elizabeth is in this tent. She's crying. She's alone. And in comes Brian. And he starts performing a marriage ceremony. So, as he's...
What the fuck?
Yeah, he's performing this marriage ceremony.
You picked a good case.
And while he's doing this, Elizabeth is sobbing. And so he said to her, in God's eyes, you are now my wife. He told her that now that she was his wife, they have to compensate their marriage.
No.
And even though Elizabeth is young, she knows what this means.
Yeah.
And she was terrified. I mean, this is, she's Mormon. This is very important.
It's a big no-no.
Yeah, and she wanted to maintain her virginity, but after they do it, she felt like she lost it all. Like, he obviously, like, raped her. She felt like she was worthless now. She felt like she was just nothing, that she had lost everything. She was unworthy. And she said that for a little bit after this happened, she considered the children that she saw on the news who got murdered lucky. I mean, which, like, a lot of people said stuff about that, but I feel like in that moment, this is awful for her.
Yeah.
And she said that she felt like in that moment she was in hell. Like, that she was literally in hell.
Oh my fucking God.
She laid in there, she laid down, and she decided in that moment that she was going to run as soon as she could. Like, she was going to get out of there as soon as possible, but she was tired in that moment.
Yeah.
She had just trekked up this mountain. She'd just been assaulted. She had been through all of this stuff. She was, like, dead tired.
Yeah.
And, she had just previously had all this adrenaline in her.
Yeah.
So she fell asleep. As she was falling asleep, she was like, as soon as I wake up, I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah. Book it.
She woke up, and Brian was standing right in front of her, tying a metal cord to her ankle. So she was like, well, there goes my chance to leave. There goes my chance to get out of here. It was connected to a tree outside of the tent. And,
They chained her up like a dog?
and now she only had 20 feet in every direction to move. She only had 20
They
feet.
literally chained her up like a dog.
This would be her entire radius for weeks.
Weeks?
For weeks, this would be her entire life is these 20 feet.
Weeks.
She felt completely hopeless in this moment.
Weeks.
Let's go back to her home. Her parents,
Weeks?
yeah. Her parents are freaking out. Like,
Oh my fucking God.
her mother at this moment was hanging on by a thread. Her parents had not been sleeping for days. They were like, people around them said that they were so tired and they had been crying so much that their eyes were just like slits.
Oh yeah, because your eyes get really super puffy.
Their eyes were puffy. They could barely see anything.
Bro.
Lois tried to stay very strong for her other kids. You know, they have 5 other kids.
Yeah.
They were told that they now needed to make a public statement to appeal to the community. They hoped that this would get, like, more people searching with them, and that people would be on the lookout for Elizabeth. Lois couldn't do it. She was like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So Ed had to do it alone.
Oh God.
If you watch it, it's very sad. He's crying the entire time. It's very, very sad. But this worked. People sympathized with him so much. It was all over the media. And they got lots of support. And this brought a lot of hope back to both of them. They both felt very hopeful now. At the camp, Elizabeth is getting used to the chain. But this camp is now like her prison. Like, this is her whole world now. This whole time she has to listen to Brian and Wanda.
Are they like feeding her?
That was part of the problem. We'll get into that more. She had to listen to them all day, just talk about his crazy ideas, his crazy, like, religious nut stuff, like, oh, I'm the prophet, him talking about the Bible all day. And Brian actually told Elizabeth that he was an angel and a Davidic king, which meant he was part of the bloodline of the Hebrew Messiah. And that he would, like, get stoned by a mob one day, and he would kill the Antichrist himself. He would do that. And that she was actually part of his plan, and God wanted what was happening to happen. Like, this was part of all the plan, and that she was one of many of his brides that he would get. He wanted to, her to take on this new identity and completely forget her past.
So it is a cult.
I think that's what he was trying to work towards. I really do. And I think he wanted to be the cult leader and have multiple brides.
Yeah.
And he told her that she now needed to choose a new name. And he let her choose, like, a religious name. And she chose Esther.
Esther?
Esther, I think. Esther?
Esther, yeah.
Yeah.
At least she picked a good one.
Yeah. And I think that's what they called her from now on. I'm obviously not going to call her that. That's not her name.
Yeah.
She was forced to pick that. But I think that's what, from now on, she was called by them. Throughout her kidnapping, she was very abused.
Well,
She was raped almost every day, I think. She was assaulted physically, deprived of food and water, and forced to sit for hours. He would starve her for days, give her garbage to eat, very little water. She basically became their slave. She was like an object to them. She would, like, have to do whatever they told her, including Wanda. Wanda was very much a part of this.
That's fucking disgusting.
Despite what you may think from this, Wanda was not a captive. She was very willing to do this. She was not in any way, like, coerced into this.
The worst kind of
She
women.
was very much an accomplice. Like, she was very much an accomplice. She was not just, like, abused by him or anything like that.
Jesus.
Yeah. Brian used Elizabeth's faith to manipulate her.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
He forced her to watch porn and to drink alcohol. Again, she was, like, 14 at this time. He said that she needed to experience all the sins of the earth before she could truly become pure, and that this is what God wanted for her, and that she had to sink to the lowest low before she could be the wife of a prophet.
What the fuck?
Yeah. One time, Brian made Elizabeth drink wine, or she couldn't have food or water, so she had to.
Ew.
And so she drank a sip of it. He then made her drink a whole cup of it. And then after that, he made her continually drink more and more cups of it. She became drunk. Obviously, she's tiny. She's a 14-year-old
Yeah.
girl. And at this point, she enjoyed this feeling because it was like a numb. So she didn't have to feel anything else. She said while she was like this, she felt like she couldn't be hurt anymore. And this whole process became a loop for days. Like starving, physical assault, rape, everything. Wanda became jealous of Elizabeth.
Oh
You
my
know,
god.
because she was younger and prettier and getting all the attention from Brian. So Brian came up with a schedule. You know, Wanda would have him in the mornings and Elizabeth would have him in the afternoon and evening. But one day, Brian and Elizabeth went to get water alone, and Brian tried to rape Elizabeth. But Elizabeth was like, hey, this is Wanda's hours. This is morning time. You can't do this to me.
Get his ass.
And he was like, well, Wanda won't know. And she was like, well, I'll tell Wanda. And so he didn't rape her. And this was when Elizabeth kind of realized that she had a little more control than she may have thought.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a lot she couldn't do, but this made
Yeah.
her feel like she had some control.
Yeah.
Brian really wanted Elizabeth to just not remember her past. He burned her pajamas and everything she came with.
Holy fuck.
But she actually kept a safety pin that was on her pajamas and a piece of her shoe. But he found this, threw it out, and she wore the same clothes as them. And at this point, it's been weeks. Her parents are still searching and hoping that she is still alive. They think that she is still alive. Their life was like completely on pause at this point.
Oh yeah.
They were on the news all the time. The search efforts were still happening. One day they had 2,000 people searching for her.
Jesus. 2,000 people?
Yeah. On the third day of searching, like the third day after this had happened and they were searching,
Yeah.
someone was calling her name and she heard them calling her name.
What?
And she said it sounded like her uncle. But Brian told her that if she made any noise, he would kill her and her family. So she remained quiet and like the voice faded away and she lost that. It like was awful for her because she was like, there goes another chance for me to get out.
Yeah.
Ed, her father, was a wreck. Like,
I bet.
completely just helpless. And, like, you lost your daughter. You know, obviously there was nothing he could have done. Like,
Yeah.
it was not his fault, but he felt like it was his fault. He was worrying constantly, like, is my daughter okay? Is she with someone that's taking care of her? And he had a mental breakdown.
Oh yeah, I would have fucking.
And that was
done
also
too.
on the third day where he had a mental breakdown. He was admitted to a hospital and sedated. His family says that it was because he was not sleeping at all. He was obviously very like into his faith, so he had a bishop come and pray with him, and he said after that he like found a way to keep fighting.
Mhm.
And Elizabeth at this time was actually using sleep as a coping mechanism. So she tried to sleep anytime she could, anytime they would allow her to.
Mhm.
And she said that it felt like a time away from everything that was happening.
Yeah.
And she said when she wasn't asleep, she would be praying and thinking about her family, thinking about God and her faith. And she was hoping that a miracle would happen.
Mhm.
Her family actually offered 200, 500, or 250,000. You know,
Say that
I
again.
know numbers.
250,000.
Yeah, 250,000.
25000.
As an award for her.
Yeah.
Reward for her. They agreed to do as many interviews as they could. Like anyone that offered an interview to them, they would jump on it. But by now, the public is demanding answers.
Mhm.
They want to know what's going on. and the media just doesn't have any for them.
Yeah.
So the media decides, since we don't have any actual answers for them,
They make some up.
they make some up.
What the fuck?
They had an anonymous report saying that the screen was cut from the inside, suggesting that the family did this. The family was actually, they did not care about the rumors. They just cared that people were still paying attention to the case.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, do say all that you want, but at least you're still paying attention to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Another anonymous source came from the police, and it said that someone in their family failed their polygraph test, which actually the test was just like inconclusive, and it was actually the uncle that had this, which polygraph tests aren't reliable.
They're not.
They can't even be used in courts. They're not reliable.
Mm-mm.
And I'm sure that the uncle failed this because he felt
Nervous.
very nervous, maybe felt guilty. He just felt, the uncle is very into the case,
Mm-hmm.
and he feels very guilty, very remorseful for like, well, I wouldn't say remorseful. He feels very guilty and very like upset.
Mm-hmm.
But the media completely ran with this. They plastered it everywhere. Like there was newspapers saying that this could possibly be a family ordeal. The family was like very, very, very targeted. David, which is the uncle, and Ed were said to have a bad relationship, so maybe this could be why she had gotten kidnapped. Maybe the uncle did it. They cleared this up on TV and were like, hey, this isn't true at all. We're a happy family. But some people still really turned on the family and said that they were responsible for the crime. Meanwhile, Elizabeth has been gone for 49 days.
Jesus.
And now Brian wants a new wife. He wants to kidnap somebody else.
No.
And so he chooses Elizabeth's cousin, Olivia, who is 14 years
Why
old.
would you do it from the same family?
Um,
That's gonna make it even look more conspicuous.
Elizabeth is terrified
Yeah.
because she doesn't want any of her family hurt. She tries to convince him not to do this. She's like, hey, you're going to get caught if you do this. Like, they're going to know that, like, it's the same person. He didn't care. He was like, whatever, screw you, I'm doing it anyway. July 24th, he left the camp. He took the same knife he did on his last trip. He took duct tape and clothes. He went to Olivia's house. He decides to break through a window. He's cutting the screen, and he knocks the pictures down. And this wakes up Olivia's mother. And she sees him, and she's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
You're not kidnapping, like, no one's getting into my house. She screams, and he runs off. He's scared. He runs off. She called the police up, and she was like, hey, I think it's the same person that just kidnapped my, like, niece or whatever. I think another person in my family just got kidnapped, and now someone's trying to kidnap my kid. And they're like, I don't think it's connected. Like, I don't think it's the same person. The police don't think it's the same person. They're
Fucking
like,
idiot.
They're like, what? No. How could that be possible? And she's like, yes, it is. And they're like, and they literally say, hey, maybe it's a joke that someone's trying to play on you. Like, what?
What the fuck?
And they're like, maybe if someone's just trying to scare you. And so whatever the police...
Look into it!
Yeah, the police don't look into it. They're just like, someone's just trying to scare you. And they leave it alone. Elizabeth is relieved, though, when he comes back without her.
Yeah.
He tells them about it, and she's like, oh, my cousin's fine. Like, she's, like, safe. She's now deciding just to keep quiet and not talk to them when she doesn't have to. She decides not to talk about her past. Unless she is talked to, she does not try to talk to them.
Yeah.
She doesn't talk about her past with him because it makes him really angry when she talks about her past, because he's trying to make her have this new identity.
Yeah.
She's still chained up right now. 50 days now, and she's still chained up. But she's built up her trust with him, especially now that she's not talking about her past.
Mm-hmm.
And she convinces him to unchain her.
Period.
But he tells her, he said, if you try to escape, I will go and murder your family. And you. So that, kind of convinces her to not try to run away.
Yeah. I would have killed him in his sleep.
But she's, thinking about it. And she's like, you know what? I am going to try to run away. So she, one night, he gets really freaking drunk. So drunk. And she's like, this is my perfect opportunity. He's drunk. I can get out of here, and he's not going to be able to catch me. So she's trying to get away, and Wanda chases her down. She chases her, she grabs her, and she says to her, if you do that again, you will meet an angel with a sword. Which, I don't know what that means, but it scares Elizabeth.
I'm gonna assume that means death.
Yeah.
Like, Brian's gonna kill her.
So, but she gets back, and Brian beats her. Beats her and tells her that if she tries to leave again, and she survives, which means if she tries to leave again and he doesn't kill her, that she's going to get chained up again. But he doesn't chain her up after this happens. She gets to, which I think is weird, she gets to remain unchained. But soon enough, like soon after this happens, Wanda and Brian get in a huge freaking fight because Wanda's tired of living in this dingy camp up in the woods. And she's also really jealous of Elizabeth, of course, because she's freaking crazy. And she's bored. Poor Wanda is so bored up in the freaking abduction camp. And she wants to live in society. And she wants to go out and party. That's her excuse. She wants to go party. And at first, Brian's like, no, we're not going to go live somewhere else. But eventually, he's like, oh, okay, we can go out. They decided to leave the camp and have Elizabeth come with them. Like, I don't think they're not leaving to, like, move somewhere else, but they're leaving to go out into, like, society.
So not only are they motherfuckers, but they're dumb motherfuckers. Yeah.
So, they're not too dumb, though. They disguise her with a veil that only shows her eyes. It, like, covers here and here. And, I say here and here, like they can see. Like, your mouth and your head. All you can see is her eyes. When they're leaving, Elizabeth realizes how high they are on this mountain. Like, she can see Salt Lake. Like, they're very high up there. But now they've started this routine of going to the city to panhandle on the streets. And when they would go there, Brian would, like, steal food and alcohol. He had some, like, biblical reason that he could do this. He had some kind of excuse. But that was his thing. He would go when they were up there, and he would go steal food and alcohol.
What the hell?
Yeah. On one of their trips, they're walking down the street, and they see this house party that is just, like, open. Like, you can go in. It's like this artist... This guy that's, like, sells art, I think, is having this house party. It's a big house party. Like, there's people in the front lawn, like throwing, like, fire sticks or whatever. You know, where you, like, twirl fire sticks.
Like batons?
Yeah, like a fire at the end. Like, there's people in the front lawn, like, doing that.
My grandma used to do that. Not with fire, but...
But, like... I think it's a little different.
A little different.
But, like, Brian, not B. I have, like, just B in here on my notes.
Yeah.
But Brian, like, was like, hey, let's go in that party.
Like someone ain't gonna recognize.
Yeah. It's tons of people. Elizabeth is completely just out of touch here. Like, this is not her type of thing. She's 14 years old.
Yeah.
She's never been to a party, and for 50 days now, she's only been with Wanda and Brian.
Yeah.
She is not used to this. This is definitely not her type of thing. No one at this party recognizes her.
Bro, what?
Which I know is kind of like... Oh, with the veil, you can't really recognize. Her eyes were still there, and she's also this little girl with two people in veils and robes. Would you not?
Like, is that not little? That's not. That has to be a little sus.
At this party, she actually has a picture taken of her, and I'll pull it up for you real quick. It's very easy to find. It's like you can just look up Elizabeth
Smart
party photo. Like, someone takes a picture of her at this party. I think it also has Mr. Brian in it.
Brian?
Yup. There it is. I mean, it's a little girl.
What the hell?
That's a little girl in a veil. You can kind of see quite a bit of her face. No one recognizes her. So she's at this party. No one recognizes her. She gets a photo taken of her, though.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy at the party, he, like, senses that something's up. He's like, this looks like a bad situation. Which, again, I know that it's kind of weird, these people dressing up in these robes. But it's a really, like, a bunch of weird people are at the party. So I guess, and all these people are probably intoxicated.
They're like, yo.
But this guy, like, he's like, oh, this is weird. Like, this little girl with this grown man and this grown woman. Like, this is very weird. But he thinks to himself, like, maybe this is just a really weird relationship. Which, also, still, it's kind of like, that's a little pedophilic still.
Yeah.
But he pulls her aside, Elizabeth, and he's like, hey, this is, like, what he says. He's like, hey, this guy's an asshole, and you need to get away from him. That's what he says.
I'd be like, bro, I've been trying to.
But he said later on that he felt like it wasn't his place, and he like feels guilty to this day. Like, you can go watch an interview with him. He's like just crying and saying that he has a daughter and he feels really guilty.
I mean, he couldn't have known.
You couldn't have known. During this party, a random guy just gives Brian some absinthe. You know, that really crazy alcohol absinthe? It's like it's a really crazy alcohol. And he drinks a lot of it and gets really drunk.
I don't think that's how you say it.
It may not be how you say it. Maybe look it up. But it's like a really bad alcohol. Like, not bad, but he got very intoxicated.
Absinthe. Yeah, absinthe.
He got very intoxicated off of it.
Because it's wormwood.
Yeah. And someone, like, took it from him and be like, hey, stop drinking all our booze. Like, you're drinking so much of this. It's probably very expensive. But, he was basically just acting very annoying. Everyone was kind of like, this guy's getting on our last nerve.
Bro.
He caused a big scene, and he got kicked out.
It'd be like that.
And he obviously took Elizabeth and Wanda with him.
Mm-hmm.
They went up back to the mountain, back to their camp.
Bro, it's such a long-ass walk.
She obviously felt very stuck after this.
Yeah.
Like, nobody recognized her at this big party. She felt like, okay, I'm just here now. Summer was about to end. It was about to be winter. They couldn't stay up at this camp for winter. So Brian was like...
We go summer to winter? I thought we went summer to fall.
But Brian was like, we need to move to California. Yep. So, in August, they went to the library in Salt Lake City.
What?
And...
The fuck?
And they went to Salt Lake City. Oh, wait.
They went to Salt Lake City?
They're already in Salt Lake City.
They went to Salt Lake City.
But they went to the library in Salt Lake City to get a map so that they could go to California.
Just the library?
Just the library.
There's just one?
I'm sure there's multiple. But they went to this library that I think they went to a couple other times.
Yeah.
To get a map. But they go in, and someone recognizes Elizabeth.
Oh, shit.
And this lady that recognizes her is kind of like, well, I don't want to, like, come up to this abductor.
Ain't my business.
Yeah. But she calls 911.
Oh, period.
Yeah, she calls 911. A detective comes to the library, and he, like, kind of stood back for a while to wait for Brian to go to the bathroom. And so he comes up to Wanda and Elizabeth, and it's like, hey, I'm looking for a girl named Elizabeth Smart. Do y'all mind taking your veils off? And at this exact moment, Brian walks out of the bathroom.
Oh, no.
He comes out of the bathroom, he steps in, and he was like, this is my daughter, my wife, and because of her religion, they can't take off their veils. And he was, like, very calm about it. But the officer was like, can they please, like, take off their veils so I can make sure it's not, like, Elizabeth Smart? And Brian was basically like, nope, they can't. Like, can you say it over business? Can you go away? And the officer was like, well, can't do anything else. And leaves and never reports this incident.
What the?
Never reports it. Never goes into it deeper. He's just kind of like, oh, well, what can
Is
you
that
do?
not sus? Is that not sus? Is that not sus?
It's very. But he's just like, oh, what can I do? They said no.
I think you can I mean, I don't know the rules of...
I think he could have taken it farther. I don't think he could have forced them to take off their veil, but I think he could have taken them in for questioning something. I don't know all the rules.
Because I know that they can take it off for, like, medical stuff.
I don't know the rules, but he was just kind of like, oh, well, bye-bye, thank you. And after this, they boarded a bus and went to San Diego.
Nice city.
Elizabeth was feeling so hopeless. She's like, now I'm not even in my city.
Yeah.
Now I'm not even in a place that people can, like, easily recognize me.
Oh my god, bro.
They made a camp beside, like, this creek, very, like, away from everybody else. Elizabeth is like, it's disgusting. She thinks it's just disgusting there. It's now been 4 months since she's been abducted.
What the hell?
I'm trying to say abducted.
Abducted.
Yeah.
Abducted.
She's, like, feeling very just awful, and she asks him for alcohol so that she can feel numb.
Yeah.
She's, like, she starts drinking a lot of alcohol at this point, to the point where she's like getting sick and throwing up, and she would like wake up and like throw up in her hair all over her.
Oh, nasty. You ain't gotta tell me that.
Well, this is the place she was in at this point. Brian started going to the local LDS church in Lakeside, and he met someone named Verl Kemp. Verl had a teen stepdaughter that stayed with him on weekends and sometimes on Wednesdays.
Nope. I already know where this is going.
Brian wanted her to be his next wife. Like, this is the woman that he's chosen, the girl he's chosen. And one night he decided he wants to break into Verl's house. And, but someone, as he's breaking in, hears him, like, breaking in. And someone heard him and woke up and turned the lights on, and he got scaredy and ran.
He got a little scared, a little pussy.
But one time, someone got kind of close to their camp, and Brian was like, nuh-uh, nope, and he moves their camp even further away from people. Just so even further back, like, away from everybody. One day, he comes up to Elizabeth with a newspaper, and he showed her an article about her. And he was like, and there's like a picture of her parents on it, and he was like, look, I guess he's just being rude. I don't know his point in this, but he's like, look.
Just to be an ass.
Look, they're looking for you. And this actually, like, had, like, an opposite effect on her. She was actually very hopeful after this. She's like, oh my gosh, they're still looking for me. And he says to her, he looks her in the eye, he's like, I thought they would have given up by now. He's just being awful, evil. Like, that's just his point. The rumors about her family were now kind of dissipating, like, going away. And now the officers were finally... Don't spoil it for
How
yourself.
much we got left?
Just a little bit.
Alright.
About 3 pages. The rumors about her family were, like, dissipating, and the officers are finally, like, concentrating, like, on an intruder actually coming into the house. Finally. They're thinking that it's an intruder.
About fucking time.
Yeah. They found out that the family actually had about 60 contractors come to their house in the past few years. Like, because again, they have a huge freaking house. And so they thought now that it could be a contractor that worked on the house, which is in the right direction.
Yeah.
And Brian was actually on their list of suspects.
Good.
Because he actually had a criminal record, obviously, from what he did to that 8-year-old girl. And also because he was part of a pharmacy robbery where he shot a cop. Yeah.
You failed to mention that earlier?
Because they were just figuring this out. So the police are now trying to get info on all these suspects. There's nothing in the media. I mean, again, there's nothing for the media to talk about, so guess what happens?
They make shit
They
up.
make up some rumors. They said that there was a resting place that they had found, which they didn't. And they also said that there was an area that Elizabeth Smart had been decapitated. They lied about her being decapitated for some reason. It was obviously not true. She's still alive.
Why would you take it that far?
But anyway, the public and the family, they both wanted answers, especially with all this fake stuff coming out. And the police were very desperate for a suspect. So they stuck on this guy named Richard Reese, which obviously isn't the right guy.
He's Reese.
So Richard was like a Loki?
He's like a little...
He's a local handyman.
He's just like a Loki suspect.
He's Loki. He does have a history of drug abuse, and he worked on the family's home. They, like, really thought it was him. Like, they really, really thought it was Richard.
I mean, like, bro,
Richard was, like, in jail at this time, though. And he got arrested 9 days after Elizabeth was taken. So, obviously, like, they think kind of that Elizabeth is dead at this point, because... But the police questioned him very intensely for hours. He denied it very hard. Like, he was like, no, I did not do it. No, I did not do it. I did not do it. And he eventually actually started crying. And, like, he took this very hard. Because he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But even after this questioning, they thought it was him. And they thought he was just denying it. This was mostly just to get the case over with, honestly.
Yeah.
So that the family could have answers. The family didn't think it was Richard, though. They were like, nope, it's not him. And she's still alive. But the police would never find out because Richard ended up dying of a brain hemorrhage in August of 2002. So Richard's dead. But while he was in the hospital, the police put out a statement. They were like, hey, it's crucial for this guy to stay alive for our investigation. Didn't happen though. He died. The family hoped that this would stop them from thinking it was Richard, but it didn't. They still thought it was Richard. And
The police?
And, like, the police actually wanted to close the case with him dying. They wanted to pin it on Richard and close the case.
No!
And the Smart family was like, no, you're not doing this. Like, no, you're not. They felt that Elizabeth was still out there and the kidnapper was still out there, too.
Yeah, they were right.
Yeah. But the police was like, oh, maybe we should close the case. And they were like, nope, you can't. And the reason they felt this so strongly is because in October 2002, Mary told them that she knew who it was that kidnapped her. She,
They kidnapped Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She woke up out of bed one day, or she was just, like, laying in bed, and then she was like, hold up. And she ran into the living room and was like, hey, I know who it is. She told them it was the hamless man.
He ain't had no
He
hams?
don't have any hams. The homeless man that worked on their house. And the dad was like, Emmanuel, it's Emmanuel, or AKA Brian. So they went to tell the police. They made a sketch. The police didn't believe them.
I gotta go.
The police did not believe them.
I gotta go.
They said they didn't really believe Mary could do this. She was so young and didn't have good memory. And they, were making up excuses like, oh, it's been so long. She's just now remembering this. But if you think back, she did say, hey, I recognize this guy's voice.
Yeah.
And they're also like, how could she remember this from so long ago? Like, this man worked on their house so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So they were worried for this to go public, though. The police were worried about this because they were like, what if this gives Brian a warning and he does something irrational? But the family was like, well, what if this also brings in tips?
Yeah.
Like, what if this leads to us finding this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And this was like a huge argument for the police and family. Like, they were very at ends. They were like, no, I'm gonna do what I want. No, I'm gonna do what I want.
They should.
In December 2002, John Walsh, which is a big guy that does news about crimes, started to help the family, and he went on Larry King and released the sketch with the family's permission, obviously, and told all about what Mary said, Mary Catherine.
Period.
Okay. Well, now at this point, Elizabeth just turned 15. She spent all the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, with Brian and Wanda. In 2003, February 2003, she had been in captivity for 8 months. It has been almost a full-term pregnancy. 8 months, that's so long to be with those people. Brian decided to leave Wanda and Elizabeth at the campsite with no food and no water so they'll get some more. They had been without food and water for days. Elizabeth thought at this point that she was going to die of starvation or dehydration.
Yeah.
And she was actually at peace with that. And she was just laying there on her back wouldn't it be so funny if I died this way after all of this? And she started laughing. And she was just very much at peace. She was very much I'd rather be in heaven right now than right here. And then suddenly it starts to rain. It just starts pouring down rain. She drank the water. After days, Brian finally came back. And while he was gone, he bought alcohol, prescription drugs, and was arrested for breaking into the LDS church, but convinced the judge to let him go.
How?
Luckiest person alive? I don't know. I just don't know.
What the fuck?
And then one day, a helicopter flew over the camp, and Brian, of course, got scared. When is this man not getting scared? Brian felt that they were too exposed where they were and wanted to go back, or not back. He wanted to go east to Chicago.
Damn.
Or Philadelphia. And Elizabeth was kind of like, if I go there, I'm never going to get found. Ever, I'm never going to get found. And she was like, hey, God told me, Brian, God told me that we need to go to Utah. God just told me right now that we need to go to Utah. And he was like, oh my God, God told you? Okay, let's go to Utah.
Period.
And she was
She's so smart.
She's so smart. And she was like, he told us that we need to go to Utah so that you can get some new wives. That's what she told him. And he was like, yes, let's go.
Yes, that makes sense.
If God told you, then that means that we have to do that. So they went back to Utah.
Period.
And Brian put her in a wig and sunglasses, and they hiked their way to Utah. around this time, the sketch was being, like, going around of Brian. And they actually started, like, in Utah. Brian and Wanda and Elizabeth started to go into those, like, super salad things where you could, like, pick a soup or a salad. And
Oh, I thought you said super salad.
no, like soup or salads. And they started going to those to get meals because obviously Brian's broke. He's not bringing any income in.
Are you talking about the soup kitchen?
Yeah, but I think it was called a super salad, and what I like watched YouTube videos and that's what it was called in my research. But
soup kitchen, Abby.
They also went to soup kitchens and they called those soup kitchens, but they called this a super salad.
That's weird.
Yeah, but they had started to get tips about Brian going to these soup or salads. And
you have to say or now.
Or. So Elizabeth's uncle brought photos to these places.
Good.
And he asked the waitress, like, have you seen this guy come in? And she was like, all the time I see this guy come in every day.
Fuck yeah.
And she said, but last time he came in with like this young girl. And
here we go.
And the uncle was like, oh my God, that's her. That's Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And around this time, Wanda's and Brian's family recognized them and came forward to the police and were like, hey, we have information that, like, we haven't seen them in years, but we can tell you all the information we do have about them. So now they're getting, like, tons of info about these awful people.
Fucking finally.
And so 2 people called in one day and were like, hey, I just saw this guy at Walmart. So the police come and surround this Walmart. All these cop cars. And here comes walking out Wanda, Brian, and Elizabeth come walking out. And Elizabeth's in her, like, sunglasses and wig, but it's such, like, a bad disguise that it's just, like, first of all, this, like, gray wig isn't this girl's hair. Like, put some effort in, Brian, if you're going to do it. And so they come up to Brian and they're like, hey, can we have your ID? And he's like, I don't have my ID. And I'm not Brian. My name is Peter. Okay.
I thought you were Emmanuel.
And he said, this is my daughter, this is my wife. We gave up all our possessions to be messengers for the Lord Jesus Christ.
And you're going to Walmart?
But she was still in a disguise at this point, yeah. They were like, hey, are you Elizabeth Smart? And she was so terrified of Brian that she would not talk to them. She would not talk to the police officers. And they were like, we have to get her alone. Like, we can't have her around him. And she still refused to talk to them. They showed her a flyer, and they were like, this is you. You're Elizabeth Smart. And she was like, no, I'm not. I'm not Elizabeth. Like, she still thought that she was going to, like, mess up and get her family killed at this point. So they were like, okay, well, we have to put you in this police car. We have to go. And as they're walking her to the police car, an officer said, like, this is your final chance. You have to tell us. And she said, thou sayest. Which is how Brian and Wanda and, you know, because they thought they were prophets or whatever. That's how they talked. And so the officer took that as like a, yes, I am Elizabeth Smart. And so they took her to the police station. They put her in a room. The door flies open. It's her dad. Her dad comes in. They're reunited. She reunites with her family. It's a huge story. Like, 'cause she's back. She's been gone for 8 months. They
thought she was dead.
Yeah. Her parents really tried to keep her off the media.
Mm-hmm.
She actually refused to go to therapy at first, just because she was, like...
Scared?
Not exactly she was scared. She was just like, I've been gone for so long.
Yeah.
I want to take it at my own pace.
Yeah,
like,
that makes sense.
She did eventually go to therapy, but at first she was like, she didn't.
Oh.
But, in the trial, Brian, I keep saying B because that's how I put it in my notes. Brian went full religious nut in questions because he wanted to be, like, seen as fit for not trial, like, to stand trial. He wanted to see him like a mental case. He didn't want to stand trial. He blamed everything he did on his faith and the Bible, and he didn't really even answer questions. And a few times he would just, like, sing, like, religious like rhymes, like hymns and like rhyme and stuff, and he would, like, not answer.
Oh, what?
The way he acted had this legal proceeding take forever, like 8 years, just because he was trying to act this way.
How the fuck does it take 8 years?
Wanda and Brian in 2003 were charged for aggravated kidnapping, aggravated sexual assault, and aggravated burglary. Burglary.
I'll let you work through it.
Burglary.
Burglary?
Anyway.
Burglary.
Yeah, that. He agreed at first to plead guilty to kidnapping and burglary. There, I said it. In exchange for 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
And on one condition that Elizabeth would not testify against him. This is because he didn't want the sexual assault charges.
Yeah.
And the prosecution was like, no.
Yeah, fuck
you. Don't get to not have the sexual assault charges. You raped her, like, days on end. Like, every day. He acted, like, as crazy as possible in court. But in jail, like,
what an ass.
in jail, everyone was like, no, he acts normal in here. He acts completely normal in jail. He got diagnosed with psychosis and went to the hospital from August 11th, 2005 until 2008. A bill passed eventually that made it where defendants could be forcibly medicated to make them competent to stand trial. Mm-hmm. They let this happen to Wanda, but they said for Brian that it was too harsh.
What?
Exactly. Like, why is it too harsh for Brian?
Bro, this justice system is fucked up.
Wanda pled guilty and got 10 years. 10 years.
Should have gotten life.
Brian yelled at the judge and was found not competent again. He yelled at the judge and they were like, oh, he's not competent anymore. Elizabeth was tired of this and she testified against Brian. She said that he's very smart and articulate, but evil, wicked, and manipulative, and he's putting on this big act. He's not really religious. He's just a manipulative person.
Yeah. Period.
They had another doctor come in, Dr. Michael Wellner, and he reviewed 210 sources and had 57 interviews with Brian. And he said that Brian was very competent and was just very manipulative. His trial finally officially started in 2010. His insanity defense was rejected, and the jury found him guilty of transporting and kidnapping a minor with intent to engage in sexual activity. Sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is serving in Indiana, but
why Indiana?
I don't know. But
is there like a maximum security?
Last but not least, on September 11th, 2008, the parole board announced that Wanda would be getting out on September 19th. Elizabeth was very upset about this and spoke against her release, but Wanda had only served 9 years, not even her full charge.
Will she get on good behavior?
She is out to this day. She's out right now, and she is currently living 600 yards away from a school.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Elizabeth Smart.
Is she on parole?
I think she probably is. I didn't get that part. But Elizabeth Smart today is doing great. She's doing pretty well. She's she does a lot of like, I think she's done a few like interviews. I think she's just living her life now. Yeah. She's doing great.
And that's the case.
That's the case of Elizabeth Smart.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
What a roller coaster.
It's just also Wanda should not be out.
Yeah, Wanda should not be out.
Wanda was just much of like even though Brian did set this
was
all
the mastermind, she still is faulty.
She let this all happen
and participated.
I didn't mention this, and I should have, but when that detective was in that library with them, and Elizabeth said one of the reasons she didn't say anything to the detective is because when she was sitting there, Wanda had her hand on Elizabeth's eyes, gripping it really hard. Hey, if you say something, there's consequences.
Oh my fucking god.
Wanda was so a part of this.
For real. She should not be out. Were they, I'm assuming, different prisons?
I think she was in a woman's prison.
Okay.
And he's, in this maximum security prison.
Yeah.
He's still in prison. She's living next to a school.
No!
She's a sex offender.
She is. Oh my fucking god.
She does get harassed by the news, or at least she did after she started living there. She probably still lives there. I think she still lives there.
Probably.
But the main thing is Elizabeth is doing great.
That's good.
She's doing good. She's happy. She's been through therapy.
That's good.
I think she does quite a bit of television. I know she's on a few shows where she talked about what happened to her.
Yeah.
I got most of my information from Kendall Ray on YouTube, and then I watched just some specials on this case. Please go support them, especially Kendall Ray. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you.
Thank you so much. And next week we will be, I don't know, I'll talk about
a cult
probably, or
Probably.
some
crazy stuff.
crazy shit.
Thank you.
Is that